everywhere, along with everyone else in the world, but bless them especially because they have a lot of burdens to carry, as you all know. Lord God, thank you for the food we've eaten today. Bless those who prepared it, and let us go forward from here and safely return to our homes or our jobs. In Jesus' name, amen.
Everybody please stand. Could I have you stand, please, for the pledge, both of the flags? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Welcome everybody to the February Brazos County A&M Luncheon. We have a wonderful speaker today, but before we do that, we'd like to recognize any of the guests that we have that are here with us for the first time. We'll start with the far table down there and then just come across. Yes, sir. Howdy. Welcome. Okay, back over here at this table down here. Anybody? Nope. Okay, right here.
My guest today is farmer member Addie White, Nancy Baldy. She is married to a football player and a drummer.
Welcome. Right here.
Sean Brown, he's from the Ruckman Foundation.
Welcome, Rashawn. How about over here? Anybody over here, Chris? No? Anybody right here? Your table, Lisa? No? Okay. Wayne, anybody at your table? Okay. What about over here at this table? Yes, ma'am.
Howdy, I'm Kay Sanders, originally from San Antonio, just moved back here last year. So first time I'm coming to the meetings and hopefully I'll be here many, many more. Yay.
Okay, far table, do you have anybody new? We have some. Yes. Okay.
Member Brandon Henderson, 2009.
Welcome. And then back here to the last two.
Howdy, Richard Gardner, class of 20. I'm a field office engineer. Graduated in the spring, but I get to walk next month.
Welcome to all of you that are visiting for the first time. We really appreciate and we're honored to have you at our luncheon. If you haven't already,
from his public, private, and community service, including the following: Distinguished Alumni of Texas A&M University in 2010, Texas A&M University Corps of Cadets Hall of Honor in 2011, Outstanding Alumni of Texas A&M University Mays Business School in 1997, and the Outstanding Legislature from Texas Society of CPAs. His work on behalf of America's veterans, which I think is very, very important work, was recently recognized by the Lee Greenwood Patriot Award presented by the Helping Hero Organization and the Patriot Award presented by the Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial Organization.
I'm sorry that I let it expire. It's great to be among so many friends that are here today. And so my wife expresses her regrets that she can't be here. She may be watching online. I'm not sure, but she could be. I've got a really special person that's here with me today. Miranda Henderson, would you stand up? So. In the past, she ran the casework operation here in the district, and she and her team of caseworkers successfully adjudicated over 5,000 constituent casework requests. And you ask, well, what are those? That's like somebody needs a passport, or they're having trouble with the VA or an IRS refund, things like that. And she and her team over the last 10 years successfully resolved over 92% of that in favor of the constituent. So anyway, thanks for being here, Miranda. Works is at noon on January 3rd of every odd year, that Congress dies and the next Congress is sworn in. And so I was feeling a little melancholy at noon on January the 3rd as my term ended, and I watched the new Congress being sworn in. I mean, I'm there are very few nerds that stuff, but I've been through 5 of them before. So we're not doing any of this 10-day stuff. And then we just got back from Telluride on Sunday. We spent 12 days up there enjoying the snow and the fresh air. Also, you can see I'm experimenting with facial hair. So, this sucker is probably going to get shaved off tomorrow. But the missus thought it'd be fun for me to experiment with it, and it started when we were in Georgia babysitting grandkids. I just didn't shave, and got pretty shabby, so I finally trimmed it up. I look forward to spending more time in Aggie land, and as I told you, I'm not moving back. We never left, and so I'm going to spend some time today talking about what happened the last 10 years. The part that my team and I played in it, because you hear a lot of politicians use the first person pronoun, I, and I try not to use that because I couldn't have gotten anything done if it hadn't been for a great team of people like Miranda that worked here, and James Edge, and the ones that worked with me in Washington, the Waco, and the Austin offices I am. And so some of you probably got sent this little mail piece out to 230,000 of my closest friends late last year. And so if you want more details on what happened in the last 10 years, you can read that thing if you got it. So
I have to give a few shout outs to people before I started, because as I said before, I couldn't have done this without the help of a lot of people. First of all, my wife, Gina, 42 years, she stood by my side. She put up with all the pain that comes with being the spouse of an elected official, not only as part of your official duties, but also every 2 years when you have to run for office and catch all the arrows and the darts that were thrown at you. We've got two awesome sons, Will and John, that put up with this for the last 10 years. And then also during the last 10 years, we picked up 4 of the most awesome grandkids along the way. I've already thanked my district team members. And as I told you, that we have a team of people that worked in Washington, and they've all successfully migrated out to do certain things. There's my spouse. So, oh, no, that's Adele. I'm sorry. She looks like my wife. It is my wife. Who is that masked lady? Gina, my seat's over here if you want to sit. I was just bragging. Just bragging. We were just bragging about you. Let's give a round to the First Lady of Texas 17. Actually, the former First Lady of Texas 17, I think a lot of you will probably consider her to continue to be the First Lady. I want to spend a few minutes talking about some of the things we accomplished during the last 10 years and what it was like to serve in Congress. I'm going to share some of the good, the bad, the ugly. Carl has asked me to save some time for questions, so we'll do that. And then I have some closing thoughts about things we need to be thinking about and praying about as Americans. With regard to accomplishments, I want to make sure you understand that prior to when I was elected in 2010, most politicians would come back, federal politicians would come back and say, I got you this, I got you that, I got you this. And it's because they were earmarking. You were paying for what they got you, but they were doing it for what were called earmarks. And so that congressional critter could go and say and dump something into appropriations bill for a local bridge or road or whatever, tiddlywinks museum. We haven't had earmarks since I got elected. So when I came in that great big wave class in 2011 that was sworn in January 2011, we did away with earmarks. And so if you wanted to get something done to benefit the country or the state or your communities, you had to work with at least 217 other members to get them to go along with you on doing things like that. So again, think about this. None of this stuff was done with an earmark. It was done because I had to go and work with my colleagues to try to get them to understand the needs that we had here in the country or the state or the community to get that done. Some of the things that we did during this time period, we traveled over 2 million miles, including travel to 30 plus countries, countries everywhere from Afghanistan to Iraq to the territory of Guam to China to Easter Island, places like that. Gina was able to accompany me on probably a third of those trips, and we had some pretty interesting times going around the world. We cast over 6,000 votes on everything from multi-trillion COVID-19 responses to renaming post offices. By the way, I want you to know I didn't introduce any bills to rename any post offices because I thought it was just a waste of time. The biggest economic initiative that we were part of in our team was to get rid of the ban on oil exports. That was huge for Texas. Now, this administration is trying to change a lot of that, but we were trying to get that done. This had been a project of Joe Barton, who was one of our Texas colleagues for a long time. And then Speaker Boehner was off at the time. Speaker Boehner came to me and said, Bill, some people aren't listening to Barton. Would you come along and help him out with this? And so we did. And so we got that done. And that was during the Obama administration. So it was truly a bipartisan effort. The biggest economic initiative that you will never hear about but is incredibly important is that we reformed the helium markets. As you may or may not know, all the helium in the United States is owned by the United States taxpayer. And prior Congresses had totally screwed up the process as to how that market worked. And we were running out of helium at a pretty fast rate because the process to sell this stuff hadn't been working. Now, why is it important? Well, if you've ever had an MRI or a CT scan, or you got a smartphone, helium's used in all those processes. Almost everything we manufacture that involves a clean room uses helium. So it's incredibly important. And we were part of the team that got that restructured that market. This was in my first term. And so you haven't heard a word about helium, but if we hadn't done it, you would have heard about how we were beholden to other countries for our helium. We probably have some healthcare professionals in the room. Used to have to put up with something called the sustainable growth rate formula. We led the effort to get rid of that, and we replaced it with a plan under Medicare and Medicaid that rewards our high-performing doctors and healthcare providers. As I told you, the district casework team processed over 5,000 casework requests over 10 years, and 92% of those were successfully resolved. We supported $2.2 billion of local grant requests where communities came to us and said, or colleges or whatever, came to us and said, can you help us with these things? 700 million of those were approved. We led reforms to the military veteran transition process for military members that were transitioning from military life to civilian life. And I can guarantee you that one of our local hospitals is really glad that we were able to go into hand-to-hand combat with a particularly abusive bureaucracy at HHS to help them avoid some activities would essentially have shut them down for nothing they did wrong to speak of. We helped Texas A&M continue to grow its annual research funding by about over 40% over the last 10 years. Again, that was done without earmarks, and this includes funding for the C-atom, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Let me tell you this, and I've got my friend Bowen here. He understands this. Federal funding for basic research is one of the most important places a taxpayer dollar can be invested, because basic research provides the seed corn for the economy of 10 to 20 years down the road. So, I mean, everything from the internet to the smartphone to what you see in space travel today has come from university basic research. So I was proud to support Texas A&M as a leader in that. It's one of the largest tier 1 research and education institutions in the country, one of the best. And I was proud to support that. It is not wasteful spending. Part of it included 2 renewals of the world-class ocean drilling program it has. It also, as you know, we've got a cool little branch campus down in Galveston that is unique. I mean, those students down there, they're usually maritime focused in their education, go out and get great jobs, and they have almost 100% employment. And in order to train them for maritime jobs, you need to have a state-of-the-art ship to do that. And that institution down there hasn't had one in years. And so we were successful right at the end of last year to get them approved and authorized and funded for a new $350 million state-of-the-art ship. This is important stuff. If we are a maritime nation, we are a nation of traders and traders, not traitors, but traders. But if we didn't have that unique asset at Texas A&M Galveston, if they didn't have that vessel, they wouldn't be able to do that. Now, Mike Fossum is the president down there, the former astronaut. He every time he sees me, he says, "I know you got me that damn ship." And the reason we say damn ship is because I spent 3 long years kissing a lot of pigs up there to try to get that thing done. But it's done. Now, the other thing in the CARES Act that passed mid-year last year, we put $3.5 billion into that program to try to develop public-private partnerships to get vaccines and therapeutics to market more quickly. Now, the reason behind that is because in 2012 and 2013, we stood up something called a Center for Innovation and Advanced Development Manufacturing here at A&M, C-atom for short, to to do that, to get in the event of a pandemic, and we have some pandemic experts here at this institution, so that you could get those drugs, those therapeutics and vaccines to market quickly. And it just laid fallow. And so then COVID jumps up in late 2019, and that thing wasn't being used. And so we put $3.5 billion in there, and A&M and the other CADM, which is in North Carolina, each got contracts for about $160+ million to produce vaccines. And so we have had some world-class developments when it comes to vaccine. Operation Warp Speed worked. And can you imagine, we got a vaccine into people's arms in less than a year from when this thing broke out. Pretty amazing. By the way, on an aside, have you had 2 shots yet or one? One. Gene and I both had our first shot. So we didn't jump the front of the line, by the way. I had to go through the phase 3 study, which means I got the placebo shots in October, November. Found out last 2 weeks ago that I got the placebo, so I had to start over again. Anyway, so that CADM effort is going to be hugely important for this country in terms of getting us back onto a normal path. Then there was in terms of other things of local import, graduate students that participate in research activities usually get free or reduced tuition as part of investing their time into the research activities. And in tax reform, when we started working on tax reform in 2017, they wanted to undo the special tax treatment that those graduate students get. And we were able to preserve that. I could not get it done with my House members, including my friend Kevin Brady. And so I just wired around and went over to my Senate friends in the Senate and said, when this bill comes to you from the House, would you put that provision back in? And so fortunately, my friends, John Cornyn and Ted Cruz helped us out with that. And we had a lot of successful policy mandates, policy implementations that we're part of, particularly those with our most vulnerable, America's unborn children. Now, for what it's like to be in Congress, my favorite things, nominating high school students to our nation's military service academies. Now, all of us know that there's no better school in the world than Texas A&M, but the ones that are second are our nation's service academies. And what's really neat about this, you look at young people today and you can be discouraged about what you see. And Miranda was part of this. She helped with this process. But when you interview these bright young high school seniors that want to go serve in our nation's military academies, it just makes you feel good about the country again and good about where we're going, because these are the best or brightest. And if you think about it, from 10 years from a point in time when I nominate them and they're accepted usually a month or two later, 10 years from then, they're going to be out in battle space somewhere, either in space, in the air, on the sea, under the sea, or on land somewhere, or in cyberspace, protecting us and leading other young men and women in uniform to protect our country. So it was one of my most important functions as a member of Congress. You don't hear a lot about it, but it's very important. Now, I'm going to go off on an editorial aside. You may have seen some news reports in the last month about the current person for this district taking credit for the nominations that are being accepted. I made those nominations. So I just want you to know, it's unfortunate that he did that, but I had a team of people that worked with me, former military people, former educators, a board of people that would interview these young people and spend hundreds of hours going through these applications. And so I think it's important to recognize who really nominated this group that's getting accepted now. One of the second best things is visiting our troops, our diplomats, and our aid workers around the world, and watching the impact that we have on people around the world, whether it's Afghanistan, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, wherever. Those people love America. I'm talking about the people we impact. Those people love America more than today's young people love America. And I wish I could send some of these people, some young people today, to some of those countries and watch the impact and watch how those people look up to that American flag and how strongly they feel about what what a great country our country is. And so it's just, that's one of my favorite things I got to do. I just wish I could somehow find a way to spread that out further. As you know, back in 2013, the community of West had a fertilizer plant explosion, fertilizer facility explosion. That city was just on the verge of being wiped out. We were able to work with the Obama administration to help keep FEMA funding to help that community rebuild. And it is first of all, it was the hardy people of that community that rebuilt it. But secondly, with the help of the taxpayer, you ought to go through there today and see what a vibrant community is. We're going to get all that money back because of economic activity there, but it's been pretty cool. The next thing is watching the growth and effectiveness of the Team Flores folks. I mean, you wind up getting these young people in and just watch them pull together as a team and to go do things on behalf of the great constituents of this district. Miranda was one of those. And then not only were they improving lives in this district, but in the state and all in the country. And we were known as an office to go to when you want to steal a really high quality hand. And so one of the things we wound up doing is we wound up growing a lot of great people that wound up working everywhere from the White House, coming back here to work in the state legislature. They worked in Senate offices. They work in leadership offices now. So it's just been fun to watch them grow up. The other thing that was cool about my job is I never got speeding tickets. And so, yeah. And so I bet there are a lot of people waiting to get even with me on that one now. But I'd give them my driver's license, my concealed carry permit, my insurance card, then I would give them my congressional ID. So I'm curious if this former Congress critter ID will work. So I'm not sure if it will. I'm going to have to slow down. Gina and I got pulled over in December, and she said, there's no way you're going to get off of this. So I was doing 89, going down 290. And sure enough, it worked. Now, what are my least favorite things? After President Trump got elected in 2016, some parts of this country just blew a gasket, and they thought it was okay to make death threats and to engage in violence against elected officials. And that included death threats not only against me, but my family and the team that worked with me. That's unacceptable because they didn't like the outcome of the 2016 election. And then the second thing is the violence and the intolerance that some people think is acceptable, including murder, assault, and property destruction. I don't like when people think that's okay just because they have a difference of opinion with you. The third thing I didn't like was the lack of civility and the inability of policymakers to listen to each other. You've got people just talking past each other today, and it's getting worse. When I ran for this job back in 2010, I would see people that would write something really crappy about me on social media. But then when you'd see them in person, you could have a respectful, mature conversation. But today, the behavior you see on social media has morphed over to interpersonal relationships. And that's fostered a lot of this crap. And so I don't like that, and it's something that we need to think about as we move forward. The fourth thing is Congress putting politics ahead of meaningful policies for the good of hardworking American families. I remember when I was elected and we were sworn in and we picked John Boehner to be our speaker, he said, if you always remember to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason, he said, the politics will work out. In other words, you put good policy out there, the politics will work out. The people will make their election choices based on the policies. But that's not the way it's done today. It's all politics all the time. And it's a shame. The last thing that I really don't find to be helpful is Republican infighting. As a Republican, I think that we ought to be part of a team. And there were a group of people in my conference, in the Republican conference in the House, that felt like they could achieve more by tackling their own quarterback than they could by trying to work together as a team. In order to get something done in the House, you have to have 218 votes. That means you have to convince 217 other people to go along with you. Instead, we like to have people that would go out and destroy each other in social media or on the media or on Fox News, and then or hold up a vote to keep it from happening. And when that happens, your policy outcome becomes worse. And because of that, we lost the House in 2018 because we couldn't fully fulfill the agenda we said would run. Now, I'm not trying to be partisan here, but we didn't fulfill the agenda that we ran on 2016. And so we lost the House. And what did you wind up with? Investigations, impeachment, and basically no more progress on the agenda that the American people chose in 2016. So in terms of my, I've got some closing thoughts, but I better do Q&A first, Carl. So how much time do I have for questions? Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. Right.
I couldn't believe what you were saying. I've heard Mike speak so many times.
Yeah.
He said exactly the same thing. About the things you don't like as well as the things you like.
Yeah. You know, I'm glad you brought up Mike Conaway. He is a kindred spirit with me. He and I were 100% of the oil and gas CPAs in Congress, and we both retired. So, but he's a great man, solid Christian, great leader. Anytime somebody came to me with an issue about it, first of all, as a congressperson, you can't be an expert in everything. You've got to kind of pick the areas where you want to lead. I tried to lead in energy and in some veterans affairs and in nuclear. But Mike was a leader in ag and intelligence. So if there was ever a question about ag, I'd just say, go ask Mike. Whatever he says to do, I'm going to do it. So, but he's a great guy. Yes, ma'am.
So we've had the opportunity to meet several times. Most recently was in the airport.
That's right.
You were on one of your last trips, and I thought Miranda looked familiar, and I just want to give a shout out. My mother was one of the 5,000 people who Miranda helped. And she was laying in a hospital in Houston, having just had a stroke, and was concerned about how she was going to pay for her health insurance. She had lost her job, found out she was having TIAs, and she had been trying to get on Obamacare for months to no avail. So, found out she lived in Sheila Jackson Lee's district in Houston. I said, Mom, I'm calling Bill Flores' office.
Yeah.
First time to ever engage with any elected official, and Miranda and your team got taken care of to the point that everything was retroactive to where my mom just had to pay what she would have had to pay anyway.
Right.
But, so I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. I mean, I still, to this day, and I wish my mom was here so she could meet Miranda.
Yeah.
She got to meet you. So my question for you is, my sons both live in Midland, Texas. They do not have college educations. They do have trade skills that are transferable to other industries. My youngest son just bought a house in June. Was 24 years old at the time, put $14,000 cash down on a house.
Wow.
Got great financing, has zero debt. They're not out buying big trucks. They have zero debt, money invested. Every single day, I'm watching a pen hit a piece of paper, and I just feel as if my family and their way of life is being attacked.
Right.
So this is a real easy question. What words of encouragement do you have for those who are concerned about every day just that pen is going across?
Right. Right. Well, here's what we've been through this before. First of all, let me. It was great to meet you at the airport. It was great to meet your mom, and thank you for the comments. As I told you, it was our team that did, not me. But I'm glad that things are working out with her. We've been through this before. You may remember one State of the Union speech where somebody said, "I've got a pen and I've got a phone, and I'm just going to take over and do what I want to do," and they did. And the price of gasoline jumped up to $4 a gallon. And the American people revolted. And you're going to see the same thing happen again. Look, we go through these cycles. History repeats itself. And that's one of the things that elected officials don't. They forget about history and they forget about real world economics. And so We're going to see a spike in gasoline prices as domestic energy prices get worse. Our domestic energy production drops off the cliff. And then you'll see, I predict that you'll see the Republican Party take over the House again, and a lot of this BS will stop. And so anyway, just want to let you, that's kind of what I think will happen. But we're going to have some tough times. And a lot of this stuff's being done under the guise of fighting COVID-19. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say you are a legend among a lot of people across the.
A legend?
You are a legend in a good way.
Would you tell Gina that? I remember.
And I would fly to DC every year to try to get a cure for this guy. And we were crossing, I was trying to get an appointment with you, and most people don't meet the member.
Right.
They meet the A. And you were, one, willing to meet with me, but two, you were flying back and I was flying up, and you were flying up and I was flying back. We couldn't find a time. And so finally.
I think I met you at a bar somewhere, didn't I? So-
It was 10 p.m. and I
Yeah.
was going to leave the next day, and you just got there. And I was afraid to go alone in DC, and you came train over 10 p.m. to the hotel where our conference was, and met with me to talk about things. Everyone in the conference, there were over 500. Couldn't believe I met the member.
Mhm.
Couldn't believe the mountains you moved. The next year was when all this stuff was going on, and people being mad about the election, and I needed to meet with you, and you weren't going to be in DC. You would have a security system installed in your home.
Uh-huh.
You said the only time you can come, you and Gina were kind enough to have me into your home to meet, and no one meets the member. And the mountains you moved, I mean, you should do training, because that impacted, that was seen across the nation.
Well, thank you.
So thank you.
I think one of the problems with Washington is that there are more narcissists per capita up there than anywhere in the world. And what would be helpful is if members of Congress, remember, they put their pants on the same way that everybody else does, or their skirts or whatever, and that they work for the folks in the district. But unfortunately, that's gotten flipped, and hopefully it'll come back the other way. We had a question over here. Yes, sir. Oh, no.
This is going to turn into a WTAW episode here after my question.
Do what again?
It's going to turn into a WTAW episode in December with all the great stories about you. And this is another one. I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Uh-oh.
You know, Bill is far too modest in his comments about higher education and what he did for A&M. I constantly heard you say, I helped support or I helped that. I just want you to relay that on many issues, including that tax issue in 2018, Bill is the reason some of that stuff is in place today. There was no better friend to A&M, no better friend to higher education. I can't tell you how many times we've had groups come up to DC, you know this, and you and your staff would always take those meetings. You were one that we could always rely on, and I just can't thank you enough for that. It's a privilege to be able to work with you. It's different today in my role now. It's a little different. Not better, not worse, just different. But again, thank you for all you did for A&M. Countless students, families, parents will never know the impact you've had, and we really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Probably one more question. Kay, by the way, I've got a couple of my classmates here. Kay, Wayne, any other Centennial class folks here? Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, Larry. Good. Kay, what's up?
What can we do to implement term?
Oh, man. Let me say this. When I was first elected, I introduced a bill, a concept called Reconnecting Congress with America. And it included several things. Term limits was a component of it. Another one was if the federal government couldn't pass a budget, then Congress would get paid. And then if Congress didn't, and if the higher the deficit, the lower the congressional pay, things like that. And that stuff went nowhere. I mean, just imagine that. People, those folks get up there and they want to, they get used to being called Congress critter, and they think they're pretty special. Everybody laughs at their jokes, tell them how pretty they are and everything. And it's just, it's up to us as we, the people, to start asking the question, okay, how many terms are you going to serve? And when are you going to, when are you going to come back? When are you going to when you're going to come back and be a regular person again? And they and forced them to adhere to that. When I ran, I said I wouldn't run for more than 6 terms. And then when Gene and I spent some time with my parents, who were both elderly, back in 2019, we decided that really 5 terms is going to be plenty, because we had some other things we had to invest our time with. But we as the voters we're the bosses. We need to tell them, we want you to term limit, and if you don't, we're going to term limit you. And so that's what we're going to have to do. We do need to have, in my view of the world, a constitutional amendment to term limit people. It ought to be, in my view, again, 6 House terms, 2 Senate terms. So that's 12 years each time. And if you're not done at 12 years as a House member, go serve 12 in the Senate. And then if you want to be president, run 8 there. That gives you, what is that? That's a bunch of years. That's 32 years. And so I think we ought to do that. I need to close the questions and share a few things with you. Our country's at a real crossroads, and there's an article I had to read when I got my MBA called "The Fate of Empires and Search for Survival" by Sir John Glubb. And I'd recommend that you all find it. It's pretty easy to find on the internet. It's not copyrighted anymore. And read it, because the parallels between historical empires in the United States are pretty, they'll shock you in terms of the rise and decline of civilizations. And it's important for you. It's important for your grandkids. So that's something I think that we need to think about. We shouldn't find any sort of violence to be acceptable, whether it's coming from the left or the right. Murders, violence against the innocent, and the mass destruction because of a bad act is not never justified. I mean, I watched what happened in Wisconsin and Minnesota when communities got burned down, and the people that were hurt the worst were the minority communities, the communities of color. Because now they don't have any jobs, they don't have a community that's safe anymore. They don't. But so we've got to say that is just totally unacceptable. We need to return to the civility of the leaders we had, like Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, and those that Harry Truman, which didn't care about their party, cared about the country and would put country first, and realize that in order to get things done, sometimes you have to get 80% of a pie instead of 100% of a pie, and to move forward, and that compromise and bipartisanship are not bad words. We need to pray for our military. We need to pray for our first responders. We need to pray for our frontline healthcare workers. We need to pray for our teachers who are trying to educate today in a challenging environment. We need to continue to pray for our scientists that are working on the cures that we've gotten so far and the cures that are coming. We need to pray for our elected leaders, and most importantly, we need to pray for our country. It's been great to be with you here today. You're going to see more of me now than you saw before. We appreciate your friendship and your prayers and your support that you've given to Gina and my team and me over the years. We couldn't have done it without you. And I look forward to sharing more of those with you, even though I'm not going to be your Congress critter anymore. So anyway, gig 'em. God bless you. God bless Texas A&M. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you. Thank you. Did we get done on time? Good.